This is going to be a difficult decision for President Trump. President Trump, in his first term, wanted to remove the American troops, but was talked out of it. The American troops that were helping the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurdish peoples in northeast Syria. But he also presided during the time when Turkey, during his first term, ethnically cleansed the Kurds in northwest Turkey. So right now, what I am hoping the president-elect will decide is to stand with our Kurdish allies in Syria. They are important for American national security interests. One, they were a very reliable ally in our fight against ISIS, and they've taken the burden of basically containing ISIS during these last 5 years. They imprison thousands of ISIS fighters, their families, and their children. And if the Syrian Kurds of the YPG, which Turkey thinks is a terrorist group, they are the largest force of the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. If they are distracted and have to fight against the Turks in places like Kobani, they could lose control of the thousands of ISIS fighters who are in their prisons or confined. And then what would that do for American national security interests? It would be terrible. So as far as Turkey goes, Turkey is a part of NATO, the second largest army. But America, during both the Trump administration and the Biden administration, there have been sanctions against Turkey because Turkey aligned with Russia in buying their S-400 systems, and they basically considered our allies as terrorists. Turkey has not changed their minds about getting rid of the S-400 systems, but I think Turkey has to do the reevaluation because Russia has lost its influence in Syria. But Turkey is now, if you will, in control of Syria through the HTS and also through the Syrian National Army, the rebel group that is controlled by Turkey, that it is allowing to attack the Syrian Kurds. So I think America at this point needs to leverage and to pressure Erdogan to stop his attacks on our allies. We don't know yet. He is still, he's making lots of headlines now, but technically for the next month, President Biden is still there. And we don't know which parts of the Trump administration, the ones that are very much want to protect the Kurds, are going to be the ones in power, or they're going to be others who want America to leave the region, the more isolationists who will be more in power. I can tell you in Congress, on both Democrats and Republicans, they want to stand with the Syrian Kurds. One Republican member who's close to Trump, Lindsey Graham, has made it very clear that we cannot abandon our Kurdish allies. If we're talking about withdrawing the troops that are in Al-Tanf and the ones that are aligned more in the northeast with the Syrian Democratic Forces, I am optimistic that he will not withdraw those troops. The 900 troops, we get a disproportionate amount of leverage and influence, something we will call the force multiplier, by having our troops there. And not only that, if we withdrew our troops from there, it would be a bad message to our allies all around the world that we are not standing with our Kurdish allies. So it's important for American interests, American national security interests, and stability for America to keep our troops there. I just wanted to comment that people keep referring to Syria as a country that, as if it has been around for thousands of years. Syria is an artificially constructed country that was constructed basically by colonial powers, the British and the French, with some Russian influence just after World War I. And Syria would more naturally be better if the Kurds had their own autonomous area in Syria, and the Sunnis would obviously control most of Syria, but even the Alawites could have some of their own control on the Mediterranean coast. This is not a country that is natural. In a way, it's analogous to what goes on in Iraq. It's a country that was forced there in Iraq, in your country, the Kurds, the Shiites, and the Sunnis to all be in one country. But naturally, Iraq is also built by colonial powers, and the Kurds in the north should also have their own or more of an autonomous state, even though that may not be practical at this point of time. So I think the Americans, my government is in a balancing act, not to antagonize the Turks, but I think we have to engage with our Kurdish allies and support them, and that they're not abandoned. Turkey is a much stronger power. It could overwhelm the Syrian Kurds. It would be another humanitarian disaster if they forced the Kurds out. Turks have differentiated. They said they're not against Syrian Kurds. They're only against the YPG that they say is affiliated with the PKK. Unfortunately, the YPG is the big part of the SDF, and that is the American ally. So America was going to have to stand with Syrian Kurds, but find some way to also deal with our other ally that's more problematic, which is the Turkey, which is a huge power in the region and is now the ascendant power in the region because basically it has replaced Iran and Russia in controlling Syria. And Erdogan has ambitions to recreate the Ottoman Empire, and the Kurds are in his way. So right now, they are designated as an American terrorist organization. Their roots are in al-Nusra and before that in al-Qaeda. They have been saying some of the right words. We don't know if they're saying that to fool the United States or because they have sincerely changed. When they ruled the Idlib region in the last 4 or 5 years, it was authoritarian and it was Islamist. We don't know when they're in much more power controlling all of Syria, how they're going to act going forward. So I would recommend to my government to be cautious and not engage with them on a diplomatic level that is public. I think we should be talking to them quietly and to see what is going on. Right now, Jolani, who is their leader, is very practical. He's learned the lessons from the other jihadists who've dealt with the United States, whether it was ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and I think he's trying to be more pragmatic. But the roots of his organization are in jihadism, and that is something that is not good for the region. So people should be very cautious. They should hope for the best, but prepare for the worst when you're dealing with this new jihadist force in Syria backed by Turkey. So we're talking about the area on the Mediterranean where Russia has created in Latakia and in Tartus, the Kinium Air Force Base and their warm water port on the Mediterranean in Tartus. Russia has moved their forces that were elsewhere in Syria to those places. They've temporarily moved some of their ships offshore. Russia does not want to leave those bases. They are in negotiations, I believe, with Turkey to allow them to stay there. I think there will be a Russian presence, but it will not have the influence over the new Syrian rebel government of what it is. Turkey is the new power there. But I don't think, Russia, just like Iran has been pushed out and is kind of hated by the Syrians because they supported Assad and the genocide that he did to the Syrian people. I do believe we don't know where he is. I think the media has been seeing very happy Syrian people and that they've been portraying these rebels, these jihadists, in a very positive light. I think we need patience here. Right now, they are an American designated terrorist organization. They need to prove in actions over time if they have truly changed. I'm not that optimistic that with time they're going to change. And listen, you've had Sunni jihadists work with Iranian Shiite jihadists when Iran protected al-Qaeda. You never know when these forces that are anti-American will come and work together. Right now, I think there is too much optimism. We need patience, and we need him to prove that he is not going to become an authoritarian and undermine the Turks, and to see how much power Turkey directly has over him. But for right now, if we're going to be black and white, they are still an American designated terrorist organization, and they needed to be treated as such.